Are we getting lonelier, or are we just being pickier about our friendships? Is there a loneliness epidemic, or are we just being more selective when it comes to who we let in our friendship group? Hi folks, I'm Becca and I talk too much, and this week we are talking all things friendship, in particular friendship in your 40s. And I'm sorry, a squirrel just walked across the path in front of me and I got distracted. So are we getting lonelier, or are we just being pickier when it comes to our friends? It's a question I ask myself because, as somebody who is hearing the phrase loneliness epidemic being thrown around a lot lately, and someone whose social circle these days is reduced to the number of names you could count on one hand, it does make me go, am I lonely? Do I have no friends? Do I have not enough friends? Or am I just setting higher criteria for what I call a friend? Obviously, friendship in your 40s is quite different to friendship in your teens and 20s. Long gone are the days when having hundreds of friends on Facebook or other social media was seen as a badge of honour. We are choosier, more selective of the people we spend our time with, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like many millennials, I grew up on 90s sitcoms. So my vision of friendship was 6 to 8 people of mixed boys and girls who would spend every waking hour together. I'm not sure when they ever actually did any work, but they had their same sofa at the same coffee shop or the same table at the same bar where they hung out every hour of the day. And if they weren't in that coffee shop or their bar, they were letting themselves into each other's houses or apartments and spending all their waking hours together, and they knew everything about each other. They talked about everything. They were very entwined in each other's lives. And that was what I thought friendship in adulthood was going to be. Reality check. That's not what real life is like, and it's definitely not what friendship is really like in the real world. Despite that, I want friendship. I want a social circle. I want people I hang out with. I want people to talk to. But who's got time to spend hours sitting on a sofa? Hey girls. Gorgeous girls. Hey sweetheart. Hello. Look, I made some friends. This is not what I meant to do when I started filming, but I've made some friends. I've enlarged my social circle. When you're younger, a lot of friendships are based on proximity and convenience. You make friends really easily because you connect with people more easily, because you sit in the same maths class, or you share the same hobby and after school clubs, or you live in the same dorm. You have this abundance of time, but frankly a shortage of criteria, so making friends is really easy. But as we get older, 2 things happen. First of all, time becomes currency. And secondly, you just figure out who you are and what you want out of life. And when time is a limited resource between family and work and keeping the house and frankly just trying to get 8 hours sleep a night, you stop wanting to spend that precious time with someone just because you sat next to them in maths class before the turn of the millennium. You start realizing that having 50 acquaintances, none of whom actually know you below the surface level or when the mask is off, isn't really friendship. You realize your time is precious and you don't want to waste it on people that don't deserve it. So if we don't have time to spend with a crowd and we're shrinking our circles to preserve our time, does that mean we're getting lonelier? No, it just means we're prioritising quantity over quality. We don't want someone to just grab a coffee and exchange pleasantries with. We want someone who can handle our existential dread, someone who will celebrate our wins without competition or jealousy, and understand when we have to change plans because our social battery is at zero. Psychologists point out that loneliness isn't about the number of people around you, it's about the depth of the connection. We aren't getting lonelier, we just are less likely to tolerate superficial connections to mask the silence. We want real friendships, and we're willing to have that with fewer people if it means a better quality of friendship. If I have just a few hours of time or limited energy to spare, I'm choosing to spend it with a friend who makes me feel worthwhile. And if it's a choice between Friday night alone or making agonising small talk with an acquaintance just to be polite, I know which one I'm choosing. Quality of friends are the ones you make time to be with. So I don't have a lot of hours in my week outside of work, which is very busy. When a friendship is worthwhile, you will make time for it. I have a select group of friends who I will make time for, and they make time for me. Whether that's we make time in one of my lunch breaks and I take an extended lunch break and they travel to be nearer to my office so we can meet for lunch, or they arrange for childcare so they can spend time with me, or even I will take time off work if it's a special occasion that I want to. And that is because those friendships are quality friendships, and you can't do that for every single acquaintance you have, and that is why we learn to prioritize quality over quantity and make the time where it's deserved. The biggest shift I've found in my need for friendships boils down to just one thing: reciprocity. When I was younger, I put up with a lot of bad behaviour in my friends because I wanted to keep the peace and I wanted to keep the friendship. The idea of losing even one friend almost made me panic. But a major part of growing up is realising that friendship should be a two-way street. We've all been friends with an emotional vampire. You meet up and for 2 hours it is just them filling the air with them and their problems. Anytime you WhatsApp each other, it's all about them. And even when they open a conversation with, "Hi, how are you?" you know that's just a token opener, and soon enough they'll come back around to talking about themselves. I had one friend who was a former school friend. We'd known each other for decades, and I had to draw a line because I got really fed up of how many times she would reach out with, "Hey back, how are you?" And I would reply, sometimes just saying, "I'm fine, how are you?" Because, I'm kind of British about that sort of thing. But other times I would say, "Oh, work is really stressing me out. Granddad's really unwell. We've got a lot going on and I'm really stressed out at the moment." And I'd get a token, "Oh, that's a shame." And then she would immediately launch into a list of her medical woes. And you just started to wonder, why am I bothering? Why am I being part of this conversation? She may as well be talking to a brick wall. She just wants someone to listen, and that's not reciprocal. So that's not a friendship I want to maintain. Or there's the ghost. That's the one where you're always texting first. You're always the first to reach out. You're always the one to try and find a date to meet up. You're the one doing all the planning. You're the one doing all the running around. And at some point you realise that if you stopped reaching out, that friendship would cease to exist. I had a really sad example of this with one of my very closest friends from university. who after university I realised out of sight, out of mind was a real way of life for her. And if you weren't in her proximity, then you may as well not exist. She won't think to reach out to you. She won't think to check in on you. She won't think to invite you to anything. So at some point you have to realise you can't keep chasing this person. You can't be the one putting in all the effort, because again, that's not reciprocal. So you may as well let the friendship end. And the other type of friend we could all do without, and this is one I really notice a lot these days, is the Debbie Downer who always manages to make everything a negative. You know, oh, you've just got promoted. Oh, well, you're just going to get more work and it's not really for that much more money. Or, oh, I'm going to a wedding this weekend. I give it a year. Or, look at this beautiful weather we've been having. Oh, it'll probably rain next week. It's just a constant drain of negativity, and I've decided I'm not willing to surround myself with that anymore. I either remove myself from that conversation, I change the subject, or I just distance myself from that person. As we get older, our tolerance for one-sided or toxic friendships really drops to zero. We start valuing equal, reciprocal friendships. If a relationship feels like an administrative chore or a blow to our mental health, we're far more likely to just quietly let it fade, or even actively cut that person out. And honestly, good for us. Protecting our peace isn't being cynical, it's being mature. So to answer the question, are we getting lonelier or are we just more picky? I think it's a bit of both. The modern world can make it harder to connect, and the transition from a massive social circle to a tight-knit one can definitely feel lonely at first. It's like a grieving process for your younger self and the life you used to live. But being picky isn't a bad thing. Choosing to have 3 or 4 solid ride or die friends who genuinely care about you instead of 30 people that just know your name isn't a failure, it's an upgrade. If you've been feeling like your social circle is shrinking lately, don't panic. You're probably just curating a life that actually fits who you are now. So I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Have you noticed your friendships changing as you get older? Have you ever had to do a friendship purge? Let me know below. Don't forget to hit like, it really helps me out. Even subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you in the next video. This has been Becca and I talk too much. Bye. So what happens when you realise you're not going to get the Friends or How I Met Your Mother version of friendship? Hey sweetheart, please don't eat me. You got an itch. You got an itch. Hey sweetheart, you got an itch. There we go. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna wreck my nails. Yeah, hello. Never work with children or animals. Or young animals.